I'm Derek.
And I'm Noah, and you're listening to A Bite Of,
where we take our current favorite pop culture obsession and enjoy it one nibble at a time.
Oh my God.
4.
We're on episode 6. You have to do 6.
Did it. Mission accomplished.
Yay.
Yoo-hoo. So welcome to A Bite Of, where we are continuing to take bites of Midnight Sun. And this is actually
it.
This is the last bite of Midnight Sun itself.
Mm-hmm. We've consumed the entire pomegranate.
Indeed, we have. On Goodreads, it says I have read 100% of the book.
Right, yeah.
So it is finished. So before we get into this bite, let us talk about our last bite. So in episode 5 of A Bite Of, we talked about chapters 21 through 25 with the one and only Melissa Planty, who brought her very delightful Twihard view
and stories
and tattoos and paintings of Midnight Sun to the table. And in those chapters, we kind of saw the baseball scene through the crazy chase.
Right.
So we played baseball, and then James and Laurent and Victoria came, and then panic happened, and then there was Canada, and then there was swimming in lakes.
The vampiric amazing race.
And we had planes, and then she left.
Right. Yeah, Bella was like, peace. After all of that,
and then she
left.
Even more chasing on highways, and now
they were trying to get to Bella when she went to James.
Yep. So now we're going to be talking about chapters 26 through the end of the book. And our first chapter is chapter 26. It is called Blood.
I wonder what happens.
I wonder. So the Cullens arrive and rush in to save Bella and tear some shit up. Edward is poison control.
Yeah. Yeah, so we get in there, and obviously James has fucked up Bella pretty good because there's blood everywhere, there's crimson everywhere, however Edward decided to describe it at that moment, and he beats the crap out of James. And he has backup with Alice and Jasper and Emmett.
And so they kind of just go off in the background, and they rip James apart and burn him. And we see that, Carlisle's like doing these like mini sutures on her, the best sutures in the world. And she's writhing in pain because James bit her. And
they didn't know it at first.
And so Edward has to suck the venom out because Carlisle sees a snake in his mind. And he's like, I know, it's venom. So suck it out.
Okay. Like, can I just...
Yes.
I don't like that. It's so weird. Like, if you didn't want to turn her, shouldn't have had, because this comes up no more in the entire series. So it was like, okay, you can suck venom out if you were starting to turn them. And it was just kind of a one and done thing. And I don't know. It just seemed more of a MacGuffin to me than anything.
An Edward MacGuffin?
Yeah, an Edward MacGuffin.
Yeah, and that's just the way that they can save Bella in this moment. And because they all want to eat her. Basically, like even Alice is like, I'm going to eat her because there's blood everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of blood. And I mean, I'm sure even though they have tons of control and practice, it's still a little,
yeah, it's like intense
around all that. Yeah. I love Alice being like, I'm just going to stand over here in the corner because she smells delicious.
I'm going to go probably help them tear him apart and light him on fire. If that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
But we also have this one line that Bella says. She says, Alice, the video, he knew you. Alice, he knew where you came from.
Yeah. I don't think that was in the first one.
No. So, and it comes up later on. They go into a little more detail about it, but she says this sort of really weird thing. And so we also learn here that James was video recording his whole...
Right, like a creep.
Total creeper.
Right, and that's grossness. How he lured her there. Was if you've seen the movie, read the book,
Bella?
Yeah, he used a videotape of her mom to trick her into coming there.
Exactly.
Which was still stupid on her part because she left her superpower boyfriend and his entire family. She's like, I got this. I'm going to go save my mom. Why not tell them? He was almost there.
You literally had the Avengers of vampires with you. And you're
ridiculous.
Like, I got it.
Yeah, not cool, Bella. I mean, that's what happens. You get broken and bit. You know?
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that's really where that chapter ends.
Yeah, but I also, why? So he's going to have, Edward's had a hard time this entire book with Bella's scent and wanting to eat her and murder a classroom full of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Why, Carlisle, why didn't he suck the venom out? I'm just not completely like sold on this whole thing. Like it was set up in a way where you're just supposed to suspend disbelief. That's like you have a vampire that's like 300 plus years old that can work on people and do surgery inside their body and not eat them.
Yeah.
So it's like, why
maybe
not Carlisle?
Maybe it's just like, that's my girlfriend. You don't get to suck the venom out of my girlfriend. I get to do it.
But even Edward was like, why don't you do it, Carlisle? And he's like, I'm busy. It's like, what? No.
Also true. He was busy controlling bleeding, stitching her head up, probably sweeping up the glass and everything. But I think that's a very good point. Listen, we just needed Edward to get his lips on Bella, apparently. That's
to taste that blood.
Just to taste that sweet Bella blood.
Yeah, he could taste the venom too, which was interesting.
Yeah. It was but then he could feel when he was finished sucking it out.
He's like, oh, this tastes good now.
Yeah, and then he was just like, I just want to keep going. He's like, this is a Go-Gurt. It's delicious and nutritious.
Bella flavored.
So that's chapter 26. So on to chapter 27, called Chores. Alice formulates the plan to cover up Bella's attack. So many cars, so much blood, so little time. So that's Chores. So in this chapter, it's pretty much all of Alice's premonitions of how they're going to
lie and handle what happened to Bella.
Right.
Yeah, she's like looking into the future and trying to see the best time. It's trying to see the shortest amount of time and what's actually going to work. It's really cool. This is why I like this book. These are the things I like, this type of stuff, especially if you read the first one. Bella just wakes up. It's her point of view and everything's fine. So it's cool to see that they did stuff or what they did to really clean up or lie about this accident.
Yeah. So when they drop Bella off at the hospital, she sneaks into like the blood storage unit and gets a whole bunch of blood packets.
Same blood type as her.
Same blood type, JIC, just in case. And then she gets the hotel room on the second floor. Then she hurls herself down the stairs, curling like a bowling ball.
It also says she flings the content of one bag so it sprays out like a fan, like the glass. The next two she pours into the edge of the sidewalk, letting it pool up and soak into the concrete and run onto the pavement. I'm like, jeez.
Yes.
I guess she did lose a lot of blood, but even just thinking about falling like that, that's a lot of blood.
And like during this time, is Alice like secretly wanting to like juice box it? Like be like,
you guarantee that she took a little tiny,
just a little bit.
Yeah. She's like, it's fine. It's gonna get everywhere anyway.
Just a little bit with the tongue.
But I love this whole chapter because it's WWAD. What would Alice do? Like it. Without her, they'd be fucked.
Oh, for sure. Because the thing is that like Edward and Carlisle go to the hospital. Emmett, I think, flies somewhere. Jasper might
to meet with Rosalie
right.
for the truck.
And so Alice is literally doing everything. She's buying them new clothes. She's doing the blood. She's getting another car. She's spraying blood in the car, then cleaning the car. Like
to return it, to also make it look like, yes, she was in this car that we rented.
Right.
Yeah.
My only question is like, doesn't the hotel have cameras?
Yeah, no, they mentioned that there was cameras, but it didn't see it.
Oh, like, it didn't see that.
Right where it was.
Okay.
You couldn't see.
Because I know they talk about the cameras in the hospital.
Right. Same thing at the hospital.
Yeah.
She saw all that.
All right.
She saw all of it.
All right.
There was this really cool thing in this also. And another reason why I really like this book is because you get to really see how Alice's powers work. And when she saw the vision of going to the hotel and talking to concierge and how, she looked suspicious. So she was like, Emmett, give me your hoodie. So she used the hoodie. And then she was like, Jasper, give me your watch. So her vision would change depending on what she was wearing and what she had. So it was really cool to see that. Where's my Alice book?
I feel like we're going to get an Alice book.
Yeah, she built her up so much.
Yeah, and these like little tidbits about her past, especially with this connection to James. I feel like because Stephanie Meyer has said she has at least 2 more stories she wants to write. I feel like one of them has to be Alice.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be Alice and maybe a werewolf. It would be weird if she didn't do a werewolf, and if she did, it would be cool if she did
the female werewolf. one of the
Leah?
female Leah. Yeah, that would be cool.
Leah Clearwater. I love Leah Clearwater.
I just have to say that I like that she went shopping at the Gap. So in my mind, they're all standing in like the same like Gap sweatshirt that has the big gap across it.
I hate it.
The same random horizontal striped sweater that they sell at Gap every winter. It's just like hilarious.
I also like how I can't remember what part it was, but they said, the car. They said it wouldn't pass a lumen test, but she saw it wasn't going to get one anyway. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
And I like how at the hotel, they were just like, okay, so someone almost died. I hope they don't sue. That was the big thing at the hotel.
Yeah, they just called the maintenance. Yeah. Didn't even call the cops.
Yeah.
They're just like, let's just clean this up real quick.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And that is chapter 27.
Yeah, if you haven't noticed by now, these chapters are much shorter than the past ones.
Yeah, we were both reading these on our Kindle, and I think with these last 4 chapters in the epilogue, it was only about 15% of the book, or maybe even a little less.
Right.
So they were very short. So on to chapter 28, called 3 Conversations. Edward meets Renee. When she arrives at the hospital, he then watches a horrible snuff film and learns of a mysterious connection with Alice.
There's this really interesting thing that happens when Renee gets there. And it's her voice in her head. So this whole mystery between, we know why he can't hear Bella. We don't know why he can't really hear Charlie, but Renee's the opposite. She's like piercing. Like it's very clear. It's almost like yelling, or he says something at like, if she could use powers, that it would project into people's minds. So they have to be part not human. It's like, this whole thing is so weird.
It's the Sookie Stackhouse theory.
Right.
Yeah.
They're fairies, I swear.
Yeah, so it seems like within, like, there's like this hereditary thing in Bella's bloodline of, if they were to be vampires, they would have very strong powers, or would have powers at all.
Yeah, he also says something about her blood, that Renee's blood is super sweet, too sweet, almost.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
So it's almost like Bella can block thoughts, Charlie can muddle thoughts, and Renee can like push thoughts onto people. So I thought that was really cool, that he kind of like notices these differences in sort of in their brains.
Yeah, he says that their minds are complementary, Charlie and Renee, so that's probably what drew them together.
Yeah.
Just interesting. It's really, I mean, what are the chances?
It's the contusions. It's the contusions. So he has 3 conversations. So the first one is with Dr. Sadarangani, who is Carlisle's friend. And so he comes in and he's like, Carlisle, you do the best work ever. And then they kind of go off and flit into the hospital.
Right.
And then Renee comes and he meets Renee for the first time, and they have a conversation, and that's when he sees the powers. And then I think the third conversation is when he watches the video.
Right. Essentially with James.
Right.
This is the third conversation.
Right. So Alice ends up bringing him the camcorder from the dance studio, and he watches the attack on Bella.
Right.
And then that's where this sort of more information about Alice comes out. Because James says, it happened once, ages ago, the one and only time my prey escaped me. The old vampire made her a strong new vampire, and there was no reason for me to touch her then. I destroyed the old one in vengeance. So that's where, you know, earlier in this book, Alice just woke up a vampire with no one to teach her anything, because the person who turned her into a vampire was murdered by James.
Bitch.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I'm curious, because there's still more questions.
So 100%.
How did Alice know this vampire? If she did at all, did this vampire know her? Apparently, so she was locked up the entire time.
And is that what stopped James from eating her?
I think she was locked up in an asylum. She was in a cell. She was in a black hole, essentially, and that's what it said. And that's why she couldn't remember anything, because most of what she could remember was darkness.
Right.
And then she, sees the future constantly. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. There's more. I feel like Stephanie Meyer did plant some seeds to do a book about Alice. Yeah. For sure.
So after he watches this video, he then smashes the camera.
Into dust.
And then you know what else he smashes into dust? The lemonade cap. Which is so funny, because in my mind, it was always like a plastic lemonade cap. So then when he smashed it until he like smash it into fragments of steel.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, it was metal.
It's like a Snapple.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was more like a plastic Arizona iced tea lemonade sort of, but it was like a metal one.
Yeah.
So, you know, the whole book has changed for me now.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, not the bottle cap.
Well, I guess she did have to get rid of it in this book because it never, ever comes up ever again. It was just sort of this thing that existed in this little piece of their story, and then he destroyed it.
Yeah, it wasn't like on their wedding night. He was like, I kept this forever.
Oh, sweet.
It would have been sweet.
To jewelry.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Oh, well. And to me, that's kind of like him. It's signifying to him that he has to leave. I'm ending this. I'm crushing this lemonade cap. So it's
leave Bella?
Right.
Right. Yeah, he has thoughts when he's, you know, thinking about things that, you know, he's a danger to Bella, which, I mean, come on, get over it.
Too late.
You thought this for the entire book, and then you're like, no, I love her. Let me go into it. And then, yeah, I don't.
Too late. She almost died. Broken leg. And now you're like, oh, I guess it is really bad. But now guess what? You started a whole other thing. Now there's this lady vampire, Victoria, out there who's furious.
Well, they don't know that yet.
Get on it, Alice. What are you doing? Sulking around the hospital. So that's chapter 28. On to 29.
The last chapter.
That's true. The last official chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It's inevitability. Edward and Bella have that, so like, where is this going conversation?
Right. Because I would be confused that, like, why didn't you let me get turned?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you can constantly make jokes and pretty much set up a fake accident where everybody believes that I would roll down some stairs and fall out of a window onto the sidewalk, like, I need protection.
How fast did she fall down those stairs like a bullet to go flying through that window?
If I heard that, I'd be like, who pushed her?
Right.
Like, what?
Right. Someone threw her through the window.
Yeah, there's this thing that Bella says to Edward, and she says, I can't always be Lois Lane. I want to be Superman too. I mean, who wouldn't? Like, you're literally led to the fountain of youth.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's like, you know, I could, but nah, like, I know you want to, like, grow old, so.
Yeah. It's pretty rude.
Yeah.
He's a little controlling.
A little?
I was trying to be nice. He's a total controlling douchebag. Yeah. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he made some odd choices here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we also see this thing where, like, everybody's just in love with Alice. She's like best friends with Charlie, best friends with Renee. I also like that throughout these chapters, Renee's thoughts are like, this guy's got to leave.
Right.
He's here too much. He's too annoying.
Right.
Get out of here. And that's just him being sort of overprotective, I guess. And then at the end, so they're having this big back and forth about where they're going to go and if they're going to be together and what's going to happen next. And he kind of keeps saying things like, I'll be with you until you're safe. I'll be with you, kind of like letting her know, like, once you're healed, then I don't know what's going to happen, but he knows what's going to happen. But then, like, he's like, okay, stop talking. You need more pain meds. She's like, no, wait, we're having a conversation. He's like, nurse, put her to sleep.
It's because, yeah, I mean, she kept pressing. So this all takes place. This whole chapter takes place, or these last few chapters take place in the hospital. And she's, you know, woken up and she's in the bed and she has questions, understandably. And she keeps asking about, I want to be a vampire. Like, this is my choice. Why are you saying that I can't do this when he says, no, you don't want that? And she's like, but I'm literally saying, like, what? Come on. And then he keeps trying to be like, what about Renee? What about Charlie? What about blah, blah, blah? And every time she's, they'll be fine. I mean,
she's like, Renee's already gone.
Right.
She could care less. She wants to get back to Florida at this point. Charlie, I'll be around for a while. Just because I'm a vampire doesn't mean I completely disappear.
Right.
And she's like, and at some point in his life, I'm not going to be there.
Right. Exactly.
So stop trying to control me and what I'm going to do.
Right. She has maybe a year left technically in high school.
Yeah.
Right. So she could go to college, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it would just seem if he's so keen on protecting her, it would just seem like that would be the best thing, because apparently she smells too damn good.
Right.
Too many people want to kill her anyway. So you're essentially carrying around a water balloon and like a stack of needles. Like it just doesn't make sense.
There is an interesting thing where when she got the blood transfusions, He's like, you smelled like poop.
Yeah, he didn't like the way she smelled because it wasn't her scent.
It wasn't her scent anymore.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. And then the infamous murmurs. So he murmured a lot in this chapter too. So one of the biggest things, I don't know if you've ever seen on social media, that these people would count how many murmurs happen throughout the books. And in this last chapter, it didn't really catch my eye throughout this entire book. For some reason in this last chapter, it was like, he murmured, she murmured, this murmured. I was like, oh my God. Right.
The thing I used to count in the books was Jacob's russet fur.
All right.
Russet fur, his russet fur. I ran my hands through his russet fur. That was my big thing. But now the murmurs are back.
I mean, you got those macros or those hotkeys whenever you're typing, and it's just like insert russet fur, insert murmur.
Bam, bam, bam. Yeah. So that's this. So then he makes her go to sleep.
Yeah, he's like, bang.
Bang. And then we get to the epilogue, an occasion. An ambush makeover by Alice leads Bella to the prom with Edward, but Jacob cuts in for a dance with a warning.
I was so happy. I was waiting for this, and I was glad that she included this because I wanted to know what was going on in his mind at this point, because I wasn't too sure. I wasn't sure if he was playing dumb with not really believing everything and warning her, you know what I mean? Just to like play it cool and stuff like that. Or if he was starting to turn into a werewolf and he really believed it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I was curious. I was glad we got some answers with that.
Yeah. So Jacob, it seems, isn't really buying the whole vampire thing yet.
Right.
He's just like, my dad said he'd pay for this part for my car if I came to your prom. Which, by the way, I don't think just random students are allowed to go to whomever's prom they'd like.
Well, they said that he just walked past the ticket guy.
Oh.
He didn't give two fucks. He was just like, nah, bye.
He said, I'm Jacob Black. Okay. I do what I want.
See this long hair?
Yeah.
Try to stop me.
He's like, also BTW, I'm like 6 feet tall now.
So he's 6'2" now. So
yeah.
That was a different change for him.
Yeah. Everybody needs to deal with that. And then that's where we see kind of, again, Edward hears him saying things in his head like, ooh, Bella's perfume really stinks and all this stuff because he's smelling the vampire on her.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like it.
Yeah. He's starting to change a bit. He got taller. His nose is working really well.
Yeah. I also like when they first walk in, there's this scene where he's like, Alice, Jasper, Emmett, and Rosalie were really cutting a rug tonight. They were dancing, melding just tons of dance moves from different decades. And in my head, like Get Low is playing and they're like doing like swing the Charleston. Dance. Yeah, exactly. But it's like Get Low. And Edward thinks they look so good, but it's really, they look ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like the Elaine from Seinfeld.
Yeah, it was interesting, this whole chapter. I felt like there was quite a bit of filler in it just to lead up to Jacob confronting them and her again asking Edward to turn her into a vampire. And he was like, are you sure this is what you want? Come here, expose your neck. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, he kept saying things like, I don't want to lead her into an everlasting evening of darkness or whatever. And then he gives another like Twilight speech and all this stuff. And she's like, bro, why are you doing this? There's even a scene in the car when they're going there where she starts crying and almost wants to jump out of the car. He's like, where are you going? She's like, I thought you were going to turn me. I don't want to go to prom. I thought you were going to bite me tonight. Oh. It's like, Bella, I know you almost died, but you have to remember that it was prom. You went back to school for a while.
Yeah.
You're in a soft cast now. It's been time.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, also another cool thing that happens in this is Alice does like a kidnapping makeover thing. And she's like, I just want to like make you look pretty. Yeah. And then she said, who's going to see me? Edward. And then she like runs away. Right. So.
And then she had her like soft boot on, and then she had one sassy blue heel with like ballet, like, I don't know, like ribbons going up her calf or something. And Edward was like, hubba, hubba.
So that's Midnight Sun. We learned a lot more questions. It was an interesting perspective. I don't want to yuck anybody's yum, but I will say there was a lot of filler in this book.
Man.
There was some chapters where we're going on 40 pages now, and most of it is just him not wanting to smell Bella.
Yeah.
It was just quite a lot.
I think that was, I guess, the difference for me between this book and the other books was that although like not tons of exciting things happened in Twilight, the book, it was faster.
Right.
There wasn't so much introspection on things. And granted, it's two different characters. It's from two different perspectives, but dear Lord, you know, she even says, like, people are like, are you going to write the rest of them from Edward's perspective? She's like, no, it was a horrible place to be. She was like, he's anxious all the time. He's worried all the time. He's freaking out all the time. She's like, I don't want to live in that mental space. And you know what? I don't either.
Yeah. I mean, if the creator of this herself was like, this was a bitch to do. Yeah, I could. It really wasn't that bad to read. There was just some moments where I was like, okay.
She even says in the acknowledgments at the end, she's like, this took me more than a decade to write.
Wow.
That's how hard this was to do.
Wow.
So, I mean, and there's also sort of a thing, and maybe I'm looking too much into it, but like, if someone's creating art and they're having a hard time creating it, in some way that comes through in the product. And I feel, I don't know. I think I was a little tired of being in his mind after almost 700 pages. So I was ready for it. I was ready for it to end.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't need to have so much introspection, but I mean, like I said, super interesting things that happened in it as far as what we got to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It is funny though, that if you compare the two books, that obviously some things were talked about and Bella said some things that were just not acknowledged in the first one. So that's always interesting that she was able to add more conversation in something. I was just more excited to learn more about the other people instead of Edward and Bella. Like Jasper and Alice. Emmett's super cool. Got to feel for Rosalie sooner.
I totally agree. I agree. I really liked all the Cullen stuff. That to me helped flesh them out as characters, and I like being able to see in their past. So I completely agree with that.
All right, so that wraps up Midnight Sun. We did it.
Whoop!
That's like we fulfilled the season 1 thing requirements that we set for ourselves. Yeah, and so since the last chapters were so much shorter than the majority of the chapters in the book, we thought we might as well just talk about the Twilight movie, because that's what this is based off of. It's based off of the first book. So, I mean, we should probably just share our thoughts, because we are not going to be visiting Twilight or Forks or Edward or anything unless she writes a new book. But our next season is going to be completely different.
So long, Forks.
Yeah, so long Forks.
Bedward.
Kyle.
Ella, whatever their... Bedella, whatever their J-Lo name is. Yeah, so we rewatched the movie before recording the episode. And I hadn't seen it. I went to the midnight premiere of Twilight.
Right.
And obviously was in the height of my Twilight craziness. And so loved it. And then I think I watched it a couple of months ago again. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to be in this world again. Like I wasn't ready for it. And in rewatching it with you the other night, something that I've kind of landed on for myself is telling myself that, okay, Derek, yes, you could be harsh on this, right? You could kind of like hate on it a little bit. But I think that I have to remind myself as a viewer that I am a 35-year-old man watching a teen paranormal romance movie.
Yeah, you can't, it's a YA book.
Yeah.
That's the audience it's going for. So, I mean, I wasn't expecting anything Oscar-worthy when I first saw all these movies. They were just fun. There's a suspension of disbelief that you have to give yourself over to when you agree to watch these movies. And so if you go in there begrudgingly, or you're not really wanting to like just accept that these vampires sparkle and have superpowers, then you're going to have a terrible time.
Yeah, it's like going into a superhero movie and being like, oh yeah, like a guy could really shoot webs out of it. You know, it's like, don't be that way, because you're going to ruin it for yourself.
Yeah, personally, out of all, there's 5. Yeah, there's 5 Twilight movies. This is one of my favorites.
Really?
Yeah, only it just has a different feel from the other ones. It wasn't so much a blockbuster. It wasn't they weren't going for huge special effects or anything like that.
Yeah.
It just felt very indie. And I don't know, I appreciated that from that one. It just felt different from the rest of them.
I mean, maybe that had to do with, well, first of all, it was the first one, and they didn't, I don't know if they necessarily knew that they were going to explode the way that they did. And Catherine Hardwicke was the one who directed this.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably had to do with a lot of the feel of the movie. The director sort of like drives that a lot. And I think that she brought a lot of herself into it. And even like with who's in the movie, right? So she directed this movie called 13.
Right.
And that had Nikki Reed in it, who plays Rosalie.
Right.
So then you know what I mean? So like there's like kind of those connections from Catherine Hardwicke that were planted in Twilight that I think kind of went through the rest of the series.
It's like Christopher Nolan, where he makes all these different types of movies, but he brings his favorite actors along to play different parts. Yeah,
it's like they have their muses and things like that. So I think that it definitely did have a different feel. It was very gray.
Bluey gray.
Like even everyone's skin tone was very bluey and gray.
I like that because I felt like they didn't have to go so heavy on maybe the white makeup for the vampires.
Oh, that's a good point.
All the whites or the light colors would be, brighter or, vampire like.
I mean, sometimes Kristen Stewart literally looks transparent.
They got it.
They got it.
Yeah.
And then seeing that he calls her translucent, I'm like, oh, I see. So they nailed it, basically, is what happened.
I mean, so how did you feel about the casting? So this was the first one, and I don't think they recast anybody except for Victoria.
Yeah. Bryce Dallas Howard comes in later on. And I actually loved, I think her name's like Lefebvre or something like that is her last name. I loved her as Victoria. So I was sort of disappointed when Bryce Dallas Howard came in. I mean, I don't know if there were like any production troubles or anything like that. But Bryce Dallas Howard just didn't have like that like very fierce vampire look to me. But other than that, I think they pretty much all stayed the same. And I think for the most part, a lot of the casting was pretty good. I loved Anna Kendrick in it. I thought that was really a lot of fun. I thought Peter Fasinelli as Carlisle was fantastic. What's really funny about that, just a little anecdote. So he actually grew up in Queens, New York,
right,
where I grew up. And my cousin, she went to school with him. He went to a school called St. Francis Prep, which was a Catholic private high school. And so she was younger than him. And she said her and all of her friends used to follow him around the school. And they used to call him something like plastic face because his face was so perfectly carved and they were all obsessed with him.
He's a real life vampire.
Yes. Yes. Isn't that crazy?
That's awesome.
So, I mean, I first knew him from Can't Hardly Wait.
Right.
So like, I mean, you see him in like that teen role. And so to see him like as this adult vampire was really cool.
Yeah. I liked most of the casting. I don't think I really had any grievances except, and I don't want any hate for this, but Kristen Stewart, she just always rubbed me the wrong way, especially in the earlier movies. I grew to like her as Bella towards the end. But I felt like it just took too long. Like Robert Pattinson as Edward, I believed it. Rosalie believed it. Carlisle believed it. Everybody I believed. But I was like, I felt like they just upped the clumsy factor. Yeah. Even with how she spoke. And rereading this in Edward's perspective, she didn't seem that way. And when I remembered reading Twilight, the first one, I didn't see her as, even just stumbling when she talked.
I was just going to say that. She like physically stumbled, but she also like she stumbles over everything she says. I agree. And like we said, people are diehard Kristen Stewart as Bella fans, and that's perfectly fine. Right. But just looking at it as like the delivery of the character, I don't necessarily agree with it. It was too muttery, grumbly, bumbly, mumbly.
Like it made you think like, okay, so why is this 118-year-old vampire and these perfect specimens, these creatures, why is he in love with this person that can't seem to speak correctly?
I like, there's just like anything, like anytime she has like having an interaction with really almost anyone, it's always this thing of like, I don't know. Right. And it's like, that to me isn't a full delivery of a character. Like, I don't know. It's something about the choice. Whoever she worked with to develop this character, I don't think they went in the right direction.
Yeah, it's hard to say if it was Kristen Stewart because I've seen her in other things and she doesn't act like that, right? It's hard to decide, like, is it the creative decisions? Is it something that Catherine Hardwicke maybe wanted it to do?
Yeah.
So it's all over the place. But I just felt like she was probably the weakest one out of all of them. And that's just my personal
I
opinion.
almost felt like they thought it would make her lovable or something, or like,
more fragile,
like,
maybe.
Look at her, Bella. Oh, she just be, and it just kind of ended up being sort of foolish.
I mean, we've all seen those TikToks of that guy with the long blonde hair that mimics her awkward scenes.
Yes.
And you have to, even if you love this fandom so much, if you can't make fun of it and you can't just see the funniness in it, even if you love it still, like, come on, like, you have to be able to be like, okay, that is a little weird.
Yeah. It just, and I think like the movie sort of maybe suffered from some maybe costuming things or like hair things. Like the wigs in the movie were like large or they didn't know how to properly lay down the hair underneath to place the wig on top. Like that baseball scene, like not Renesmee, that's like 5 books later. Like Esme's hat size.
We posted about it on social media.
Is like, I can't even, it's like I don't even know what hat size is, but it's the largest one in existence, and it's not even fitting on top of that.
Yeah, it is.
Wig.
Yeah, there is some, and I think that just goes back to it being an indie type movie. Maybe they didn't have such a big budget and stuff like that. There is some weird choices. The wigs get better.
Oh, for sure.
Later in the series when they make more money, so that's good.
Yeah. Maybe let's talk a little bit about the differences of the story between the books and the movie.
I mean, there was no high kick pitching in the book.
Not one high kick pitch.
But Ashley Greene was like, hold up, I know how to pitch really well.
Watch this.
Watch this.
Straight leg rocket kick.
She does it every time, and every time I'm like, yes.
Every single pitch. That's just Alice's style, and you have to deal with it.
She saw the future, and she was like, this is the best way to pitch.
She says, look how good this looks. Also, it makes the ball more aerodynamic.
Right.
And I get more force behind it. So we're going to win.
One of the big differences that I liked in the movie, and I think you have to do this type of thing to translate better in movie compared to book, is they showed you the nomads. So Laurent, Victoria, and James before they even knew about it. So in Midnight Sun, you hear them talking about it. Like, oh, there's nomads. They're not going to be close. There's some other vampires around. There's only one mention, but throughout the movie, you see people getting murdered. Or that one sad guy that was like Bill's old friend.
They attack him on the boat.
Yeah, he got murdered.
Yeah. They like toyed with him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and which makes me not believe Laurent that he's like somewhat good. It's like, you seem a little sadistic.
Yeah. They did a lot more hissing in the movie, the vampires, as well. I don't know if they hiss or they growl in the books.
I think a lot of it, like in the book, they do say they growl.
They growl.
But there's a lot of hissing. There's a lot of snake-like. Yeah. There's a lot of snake-like things. There's venom and there's hissing and stuff like that. So it is odd. But I mean, how else are you going to interpret that, I guess?
Yeah. Like, well, they could growl. It could be more like a instead of a See the difference?
Yeah. What else? What other big differences there? There's
there's a lot that does with the pacing of it, I think. Like even the reveal of the sparkling, right? They're at
the meadow.
Yeah, they're at school, and he's like, "Come with me," and like they kind of like run off. Like,
no, they don't say anything because remember he saves her from the car, and then she corners him in the hospital, and she's like, "You need to tell me who you are," and whatever, and he's like, "Not here, or go away." And then the next day at school, it's that slow-mo, like he's standing there, and she gets out of the truck and she walks past him, and this is after Port Angeles.
Oh yeah.
Right, because so he saved her already. He saved her again whenever she was getting cornered. She touched his hand in the car. So we didn't get that conversation about what he was.
Right. And we also discovered that so much of the big reveals in the books happen in the car.
Yes.
Whereas in the movie, they're in the woods or they're in, his bedroom or whatever.
Up a tree.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you're absolutely right. And that's the thing, is that when he says like, say it, and she's like, you're a vampire, like that never happens.
No, that doesn't happen. I liked that though. I think it's one of the more iconic scenes in Twilight. I think it's the baseball scene and, say it out loud. Those are probably the most iconic scenes in the first Twilight movie. And so I think it was smart for them to do it that way. Have her kind of figure it out on her own and then confront him about it. She still did the stupid thing of like, I'm just going to lead this person that I pretty much think is a vampire into the woods, into the mountain by myself when I'm supposed to be in school.
Well, she did do a couple of Google searches first.
She did.
In the movie.
Yeah, she did.
She looked up like legends and stuff like that. So she figured it out.
Yeah, so she was a lot more sleuthy in the movie than she was in the book. I feel like in the book, she sort of knew about it, but she was more like, he's not, I'm going to sound real stupid if I say this is what he is. And that's when we get the conversation in the car where he just tells her everything. Yeah. He's just like, yeah, I'm a vampire. Ask me, what do we eat? That type of thing.
Yeah. He's a little more, he comes forward with it a little more.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the visit to the house, the first time she goes to the house, one of my all-time favorite lines
every time it
all
comes
of the
on.
Twilight Saga is when she comes over and Esme's like, we're cooking dinner for you. Italiano. And it's like, I love that. Mainly because of how ridiculous it is. Yeah. It's like, because her name is Isabella Swan, like Isabella is sort of an Italian name, she must eat Italian food and love Italian food.
She has to. And that now, listeners, now you know why Derek says her name the way he does.
Isabella Swan. It is you, Isabella Swan. You're so delicious.
Yeah, and then a difference with that, too, in the book that I forgot because I've seen the movie more, is that Rosalie was there. When she first came to the house. Yeah. And she broke that bowl and Esme is like, you're going to clean that up.
Yeah. Esme goes into parent mode. In this conversation, I think I'm realizing that Esme might be my favorite character.
I mean, you can't not like Mama and Papa Cullen. Yeah. Like they're just the heart and soul of this entire book. Yeah. Or the series,
Trying to teach these young vampire whippersnappers to get it together and quit eating humans. Yeah. Be nice to your siblings.
I do also feel like a big general difference, at least in the first one, is that it's not clear how much Edward is using his powers. In the book, it's Bella's perspective, so you don't really get that much, but it's talked about more. And in Midnight Sun, it's like the entire book. It's at least like 40% of the book.
Yeah, most of his kind of conversations are half in someone's head.
Exactly. So you realize that, and in the movie, I guess because the only thing they had to go off of was Bella's perspective, it's not clear how much he's really using his powers. It seems like in the movie he can more turn it off and on. Right. You know what I mean? He's not really more fine-tuned to Alice's visions.
Right. And I'm thinking of him in the cafeteria and everything like that. Even those like supporting characters of the high schoolers are portrayed much differently than they are, at least in Midnight Sun. Where Jessica and Angela just are like her regular friends. There's no sort of competition thing or anything like that.
I loved how much Edward liked Angela, because even in the movie and in the first Twilight book, I liked Angela. I always liked her. I felt like she was super sweet. She had always had the best intentions. And I like how that was revisited in Midnight Sun. Yeah. In the Twilight movie, I feel like just for like runtime's sake, they didn't go into, Jessica, Angela, Mike, thank God, more than they should have. But yeah, I think they were more used as devices to be like, this is what Bella's life was going to be, but Edward fucked it up.
Sans vampire.
Right.
Yeah. So overall, I just think that the tone of the movie was good. The casting was pretty good.
Who would you have casted as Bella Swan?
I think about that often.
I have one.
You do? Share.
Emily Browning.
Oh, sure. I love Emily Browning.
I think she's a phenomenal actress. And she plays the mousy character really well, but a strong mousy character. If you've ever seen Sucker Punch.
Oh my God, yeah.
Or anything, like she's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's super pretty too.
There's a piece of me that wants to rewatch them.
I mean, we can.
Yeah, we totally can. They're on Hulu, apparently.
Right.
Just so I can kind of refresh my memory of just even the stories of those books as well.
So I guess that wraps up season 1. We did it.
Well, we have one thing.
What?
left.
Oh, I cannot forget.
Our final, the last of the last episode. It's our final time for Edwards.
Oh my God. I can't wait.
Welcome to the final edition of Edwards. We'll be looking at SAT words from the one and only Edward. So our first Edward is klaxon. Klaxon. So what's interesting is with all these words, it usually says like noun or adjective or verb. This one is a trademark.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's used for an electrically operated horn or warning signal.
Okay.
So I don't know. Maybe that was like during the chase scene.
Oh, maybe. No, it was when Alice wanted them to honk whenever she was tumbling down the stairs like a rolling ball.
Bowling ball. Oh, God. Yeah. Just a little tight.
I thought it was a different language that I missed in the whole book.
It's klaxon.
Klaxon.
Next is sanguine. It's an adjective.
Oh.
Meaning marked by eager hopefulness, confidently optimistic, or blood red.
Oh, so very different meanings.
But maybe both.
I love words that can mean completely different things.
Yeah. Totally different.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
Our next Edward is supplicate. It is a verb. To make a humble entreaty, especially as in praying to God.
Oh, when he was in the chapel.
Yeah.
I don't think we talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Bella was recovering from her brokenness and Edward was like, well, the only thing I can do is go pray. I don't believe in God, but I'm going to pray to her God.
First, I'm going to watch her get beaten almost to death on this video, and then I'm going to pray to God in this chapel.
He went through it.
Yeah, he had a lot to go through. Our fourth Edward is mean, M-I-E-N. It is a noun, which means an air or bearing, especially as expressive of attitude or personality, a person's demeanor.
What?
So it's like you have like if you have like an air of sophistication, you have a mien of sophistication.
See, again, this word could mean see?
But it's
just a lot.
It's a homophone because it's spelled different.
Yeah. I don't think I'd ever I would more likely use air. Like an air of, but not mean. Because that's just going to confuse people.
But now with Edwards, maybe you will.
Maybe.
Yeah. I'll know what you're talking about.
Kids, if you're listening to this, when you take those SATs, now you know a different mean.
We're educating.
Do you know what I mean?
Which mean do I mean? And our final Edward of season 1.
It better be good.
Is frisson.
Wait, what?
Frisson? F-R-I-S-S-O-N.
Frisson.
It's a noun. A brief moment of emotional excitement. Just like I had in this last segment of Edwards.
That's weird. It's weird that everything has a name. You know what I mean? Like, so the brief moment of excitement, maybe if you're looking at the lottery numbers and it's like all almost there. And you're like, no. Okay, sorry. That's a frisson.
That's a frisson. That's a frisson.
That's how probably the listeners felt when they started listening to us.
It was just a brief moment of excitement. Just a brief.
Yes.
And now, at episode 6, the frisson has faded.
Yep. It's done. I mean, hopefully next season we can find some segment with the property that we're doing.
Hopefully.
Yeah, keep an eye out on this.
I have a couple of ideas.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
good.
I've been thinking. And I just want to be able to use this voice more often. So thank you so much for hanging out with us in season 1 of A Bite of Midnight Sun.
Yeah, keep an eye out on the socials for teases and then the announcement of season 2. We're going to pick it right up. We're not going
on hiatus.
No, we're not going on hiatus. We're going to get right into season 2 so you can keep enjoying this. And it's going to be so different.
Totally.
From season
100%. So hopefully we'll see you then.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Bye. Thanks for listening to A Bite of. Artwork and editing by our own Noah. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at A Bite of Pod and on Facebook at A Bite of. If you have questions, recommendations, or just want to say hi, you can email us at abiteofpod@gmail.com. You can find us on all podcast platforms. Please be sure to rate and review to spread the word. Hope you join us next time on A Bite Of. Bye!